The transport shook so hard that my teeth cracked together, and the last thing I saw before the world flipped was the Ridge Station lights spinning past the window like broken stars. Metal screamed around me. Something hit my chest with the force of a falling tree, and the air left my lungs in one violent rush. I heard Ash shriek from inside his field sling, his claws digging into the fabric strap across my ribs, and then everything went dark and silent for a moment that felt far too long. When I opened my eyes, smoke filled the cabin. My ears were ringing. I tasted blood. I tried to move, and pain tore through my side like fire, sharp enough to steal my breath again. Ash was still there, pressed against my chest, his small body trembling, his eyes wide and fixed on my face like he was trying to read whether I was still alive. I want to explain how we got here, because none of this makes sense without him. 6 months earlier, I found Ash in the wreck of a poacher raid on the eastern ridge, the only egg left whole in a nest that had been torn apart for its value. Wren hatchlings die within hours without warmth and a strong heartbeat close by, and I did not have time to find him another option. I wrapped him in my jacket and held him against my chest, and by the third night, he had stopped crying every time I set him down. By the end of the first week, he refused to sleep anywhere else at all. People on the outpost warned me. Daniel, the outpost's senior researcher, told me that Wren hatchlings bond to the first strong heartbeat they hear, and that the bond only grows stronger as they grow bigger. He said it was not something sweet or gentle. He said it was survival instinct, hardwired into a species that spent its whole life on a planet trying to kill it. Grown Wren were called Cinder Kings across 3 different star charts, feared for their size, their fire, and their loyalty to nothing but themselves. I did not listen. Every night, Ash curled against my chest, tucked his snout beneath my chin, and slept the moment my heartbeat settled into a steady, quiet rhythm. He grew fast, doubling his size some months, darkening at the edges of his scales like a coal cooling into ash, which is how he got his name. He never lost the habit, even at 50 kilos, even with wings that could knock a supply crate off a table. He still needed my heartbeat under him to fall asleep. That habit was why he was in the field sling with me, on the ridge run, instead of back at the outpost. I never left him behind on trips past dusk anymore, not since the time he tried to follow me out of an airlock and tore a support strut clean off the wall trying to reach me. Now here we were, both of us trapped in a wrecked transport, with smoke curling toward the shattered windows, and my ribs screaming with every breath. I tried to sit up, my vision blurred, and my hand slipped in something warm and wet along my side. Ash pressed closer, letting out a low sound I had never heard from him before, somewhere between a growl and a whimper. I told him it was fine. I told him I was fine. I do not think either of us believed it. The rescue team reached us 12 minutes later, though it felt like an hour. Laura, one of the outpost medics, pulled me free of the wreckage, while another crew member cut Ash loose from the sling. He would not let go easily. He clawed at the strap, snapping at anyone who tried to separate us, until Laura finally shouted at him in a tone sharp enough that he froze and let them pull him back just far enough to move me. They ran with me across the open ground toward the medical shuttle, Ash flying low behind us the entire way, refusing to lose sight of me even for a second. I remember the cold metal of the shuttle floor against my back. I remember someone cutting my jacket open, someone else pressing hard against my side, voices overlapping in urgent, clipped sentences. I remember the world growing distant, sound fading like it was being pulled away through water. Then I remember nothing at all. They told me later what happened in those minutes, because I could not have known it myself. My heart stopped on the table in the outpost medical bay, 9 minutes after the crash, the wound in my side having taken more blood than my body could spare. The monitor flatlined with a long, single tone that filled the room. Ash had been curled at the foot of the table the entire time, held back by 2 crew members who were trying to keep him clear of the medics working on me. He had not made a sound since the shuttle ride. But the moment the monitor flatlined, He went still for 4 full seconds, as if his body had not yet caught up with what his bond to me had already understood. Then he broke free. Daniel told me afterward that it took 3 grown men to pull Ash back from the table, and even then he kept lunging forward, pressing his snout against my chest, refusing to be moved. He was not attacking anyone. He was trying to reach my heartbeat, the one thing that had settled him every single night since the day he hatched, and it was gone. What happened next? Nobody in that room had ever seen a Vren do before. Ash opened his jaws and let out a sound unlike his usual cries, low and steady, more felt than heard. Laura said the walls of the medical bay actually hummed with it, and a glass cabinet across the room cracked from the pressure. It was not random noise. It had a rhythm to it, a pulse, almost like a drumbeat pushing against the silence where my heartbeat should have been. The medic running the emergency response, a steady man named Peter, said later that the rhythm coming from Ash matched, almost exactly, the compression rate he needed for the resuscitation. He said it felt less like coincidence and more like something in that small, frightened creature already understood what a working heart was supposed to sound like and was trying to remind mine how to do it again. They shocked me once. Nothing. Ash's sound grew louder, sharper, cutting through the room in a way that made even the equipment vibrate. Daniel said it was the only time in 6 months he had ever seen a Vren hatchling behave like something ancient rather than something young. Not wild, not panicked, focused entirely on one single point, on me, refusing to accept an ending that everyone else in that room had already started preparing for. They shocked me a second time. This time, the monitor caught a beat, then another. Unsteady at first, faint, but there. I am told the room went completely silent, except for that sound, and for Ash, who stopped his cry the instant my heartbeat returned, as though he had been listening for nothing else the entire time. I woke up 2 days later with a long scar down my side, and Ash curled protectively against my hip, refusing to let anyone near the bed who was not already trusted. Every time someone new entered the room, he lifted his head and watched them until they proved they meant no harm. Laura told me he had not eaten properly since the crash, not until the moment the doctors confirmed I was stable. Daniel came to see me on the 3rd day. He stood in the doorway for a long moment, looking at Ash resting against me, before he finally spoke. He said that across 3 star charts, Vren are described as creatures that abandon anything the moment it stops being useful to them, that their loyalty is said to be a myth, invented by people who wanted to trust something dangerous. He said what he witnessed in that medical bay did not match a single one of those descriptions. He said Ash did not walk away from a flat line. He fought against it with everything he had. I still do not have a clean explanation for what happened that night, and neither does anyone else on this outpost. Maybe it really was instinct, some ancient wiring built into his species long before either of us existed, meant to keep a bonded heartbeat alive at any cost. Maybe it was something we do not have proper words for yet. What I know for certain is this. A creature every chart in known space calls untrustworthy chose, in the space of 4 seconds, to fight harder for my life than most people would fight for their own. And somewhere in that fight, my heart listened, and decided to start again. Ash still sleeps against my chest most nights, even though he has long outgrown the small cot Daniel once insisted was more than enough space for him. He presses close, waits for my heartbeat to settle into that same steady rhythm it always has, and only then does he finally close his eyes. I used to think I saved him the night I found that broken nest on the ridge. Now I understand it was never that simple. Some bonds are not about who saves who first. They are about who refuses to let go when it matters most, and Ash never once let go of me.